And we must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or substantially reduce this, and it has to begin immediately.
Following the tragic El Paso and Dayton, Ohio shootings, President Trump had the audacity to make bogus arguments that establishment politicians have been making for decades. No, it's not the highly powerful weapons in the streets that are killing your children, it's video games. Welcome to Higher Level Gaming. I'm Rob.
And I'm Katie. So as you just saw, President Trump scapegoated video games as a reason for the mass epidemic that shootings are in America.
Everybody's saying this, and obviously nobody should have to say this because of the mountains of evidence that have been accrued on this topic, but video games are not linked to violent behavior in any way, shape, or form. This guy on Twitter had a really amazing response that kind of breaks down that it doesn't make any sense that video games would be involved in this epidemic in America. The population of Britain, right, is 65 million people. The population of the US is 335 times that many. The UK video game revenues there are $5 billion a year. Here in the US, it's about $25 billion, which is about 5 times as much, right? That makes sense. So it seems like we consume video games at about the same rate. So if video games are what's causing these massive violent events,
then why isn't it that the UK doesn't also have this problem? Because as you can see, the gun homicides in the UK for 2017 are 31, and for the USA it is 14,542, which is 469 times their rate.
that's a whole lot of dead people. That's a lot of dead people. I mean, probably the games, right? Probably the game.
Brian Class coming in with the stats.
This is a highly reputable news source, AP News, and they have someone here talking about it. They said, shows a short-term increase in aggressive thoughts and feelings after playing games, but nothing that rises to the level of actual violence. So no, there's no violence. Plenty of gamers get upset when they lose, but it doesn't lead to violent outbursts. In 2006, a small study by Indiana University researchers found that teenagers who played violent video games showed higher levels of emotional arousal, less activity in the parts of the brain associated with the ability to plan, control, and direct. But they found also that men who commit severe acts of violence actually play video games less than the average male. About 20% were interested in violent video games, compared with 70% of the general population. So if you're not playing violent video games, you're a sociopath and I don't trust you anymore.
So there you have it. The study shows that video games don't really have an actual huge effect on violence at all. This study shows that actually men that play video games commit less violent acts.
Trump, of course, isn't even the only person who's blaming video games now, and it seems like a lot of politicians are falling back on this old tired trope.
Trump, of course, isn't the only Republican blaming video games. There's a lawmaker from Ohio, Candace Keller, who blames not only video games, but homosexuality, Obama, marijuana, and Colin Kaepernick as the real culprits.
So if you're a stoned Obama impersonator giving a blowjob on your knees, watch out. You're the problem. You're what's causing mass shootings.
And I think it's just her and people like her with guns. Other notable Republicans blaming video games include House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a California Republican. Unfortunately, even a Democratic frontrunner, Joe Biden, agrees with Trump somewhat that violence in video games is connected with gun violence. Joe Biden had this to say: "I've talked about it too, but it is not healthy to have these games teaching kids that, you know, this passionate notion that you can shoot somebody and just, you know, sort of blow their brains out."
But you know, gamers, we're a strong people, and we're used to being persecuted. You know, we're the most persecuted group in the world, actually, like more than any other minority group. Gamers are the persecuted.
Gamers rise up.
So gamers rise up. We react with the memes, and we've got two of the best ones here. Violent games cause violence. Me taking care of my fields. And I don't know why, but in this meme format, it's always like a cat. Like, no matter what mundane thing they're doing in the game, it's always a cat as like them. Violent games do not produce violence. Society's glorification of violence produces violent video games. And there you have it. If we didn't love guns so much, there wouldn't be so many games about guns. I remember a time, though, it's funny that Trump agrees with all of these politicians that guns are the cause, because I remember a time when Trump said that he would drain the swamp and make Mexico pay for a border wall, and was the most anti-establishment person in the world. Now there's been more billionaires in the White House serving under the president than ever before in history. Real swamp creatures. Americans are paying for concentration camps at the border and Trump's wall. And Trump is best friends with Mitch McConnell, and even pulling from the 90s playbook of idiocy, parroting video games are corrupting our youth, because he doesn't have the balls to take on the establishment Republicans or the NRA. This is mainstream politics, and it's really bogus that Trump, of all people, is using these lines now. This is how establishment, your radical anti-establishment businessman president is, and how sad even the front runner for the Democratic side is. And you know what? Shockingly to me, he actually went ahead and disavowed white supremacy in the same day when he made this statement about violent video games being part of the cause. Which is weird, because you're disavowing this horrible thing that we all know is going on, white supremacy, but at the same time you're like, no, but it's video games.
But that's not the cause.
This is what Trump said. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. Really impressive. Hatred warps the mind and ravages the heart and devours the soul. This is what he said when he went to visit El Paso. So, here's the thing though. Does this mean that the Democrats and liberals were wrong? Is Trump really not a racist after all? He's scot-free for every hateful, offensive thing he's ever said now? In no way, shape, or form is that what him saying this does. You can condemn white supremacy, but still support it through your actions and core beliefs. And that's what Donald Trump has done and will likely continue to do with his statements and actions as president. There is footage of Donald Trump encouraging his followers to shoot illegal immigrants, laughing about it, and saying he's not able to get away with it outside of the panhandle. So essentially, he just wouldn't officially endorse the idea, but was more than happy to encourage these people. Now, come a few days ago, what happens? A place filled with immigrants to this country was targeted. Not even just immigrants, by the way, because many of the people in El Paso are descendants of Hispanics who have lived there for generations. But the immigrants to this country and Americans who are brown were targeted by a man on a mission to murder brown people at the behest of the president and other people who supported white nationalism. This was likely something that Trump just said to rile up his supporters, and hearing something like that just made him chuckle and he thought it was funny, but that's no great excuse. So you're just a sociopath. Great. Like, that's the excuse? You laughed about it and you thought it was just funny and you didn't take it seriously? Well, that's irresponsible and makes you unqualified for the position of president. Trump has to do a lot more soul searching and look at the actual issues faced by people of color and minorities before he can ever atone for the consequences of his actions and words. This has been Higher Level Gaming. We do a lot of gaming videos, and specifically a lot of gaming videos about politics. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, why don't you go ahead and like this video and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Above all else though, make sure to go play some video games and have a nice day.
This eye is not merely seeing reality, it is touching the truth.